Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Well, thank you all for coming. Welcome, friends. Today is the day we begin to learn, or better said, continue our journey of learning, to look through the eyes of others, to find out and experience what the world looks like. It's also a day we grow bigger than our differences and offer to everyone a friendly welcome. Regardless of historical rights and wrongs, we offer an outstretched hand. Our speaker, Paul Miller, can take us there. He is a Reverend spiritual leader and expert educator from nationally acclaimed educational institutions like Union Theological Seminary and Columbia University. And I personally admire his commitment, not just to teach, but also to live the life and practice interfaith dialogue. Not only in his own being, in his own soul, but also with his wife and the world we live in. Please welcome also our resident panel, where all their reserved spots, our friend and neighbor Yifu Tuan, Joan Burstein, Norma Madsen, Maurice Waxler, and Aiden J. Weiser. Their voices are credible and trustworthy, and their experience is precious. It's gratifying to look around and see so many familiar faces. That is a pleasing welcome to what I know is going to be a great event. So please warmly welcome our guest speaker, Paul Miller, with famous Catholics. Warm welcome.
It will just help so you can understand, but I'll keep my distance. Good. Okay, very good. Well, thank you for this opportunity to be here. Y'all can hear me? I can hear myself. Mic is very sensitive. Very good. Yes. Well, it's an opportunity for me to be with you, but it's also a privilege that I value very, very much. And I'm looking forward to a conversation. I have a few things I'd like to present to you, and then we will follow up with a little bit of a practical realization of what I'm trying to talk about with a interreligious conversation, and then we'll open it up for conversation. But that's the part that I'm especially interested in, conversation. Well, the topic, as it was formulated, you have it right there, one goal, many paths. The question of why people of differing religions need to talk to each other. So let me just say a little bit more about what we do want to talk about. And that is, as is stated up there, the importance, maybe even the necessity of interreligious dialogue. And by that I mean the importance and maybe the necessity. I say maybe the necessity. I don't want to lay a necessity on anyone, but certainly the importance of people who claim to be spiritual. What does that mean? Claim to be spiritual or want to be spiritual. Let me just venture a broad description. For me, any man or woman who wants to be spiritual or claims to be spiritual means that they're trying to understand their lives. Now, how can I say this in a way that's broad and inclusive of all the different religions? A man or woman who tries to understand their lives as part of a bigger picture, that there's something else going on in the world, in the universe, and therefore in my life, that is bigger than myself. And I'm part of it, or it's part of me. And to live my life fully, we're talking about someone who wants to be spiritual, I want to be in touch with that. I want to be aware of it. I want to be able to respond to it, so that my life and the nature of this bigger picture are in sync, are in harmony. So what I'm saying then is that people who call themselves religious or spiritual need to talk to each other. That means they need to listen and possibly, not necessarily, possibly learn from each other, and maybe collaborate with each other on shared projects. That is a kind of what I would call interreligious dialogue or interfaith conversation, where where each person comes to the table to say what he or she has experienced, or what he or she has found to be true in his or her tradition, whether it be Judaism or Islam or Christianity or Buddhism or Hinduism or Taoism. I didn't get them all. Or Baha'i. But that they speak out of their own experience, honestly but humbly. And then they listen to what the other has to say. So that's what we want to talk about. But to help you understand what I'm talking about, and to help you assess it, and I don't expect necessarily that you're going to agree with everything I present to you today. I think it would be helpful for you to know a little bit about where I'm coming from. And this gets, apologies, it's going to be a little bit personal, but I think that's important for all of us to know a little bit about our personal story. So my personal journey toward interfaith dialogue. Well, I'm 82 years old, so I go back a bit. Nice to be with others who also go back a bit. And I started out engaging other religions by thinking that my religion was the only true religion. I was raised Roman Catholic on the southwest side of Chicago, Catholic parents, Catholic grammar school. And at that time, so we're talking about, the end of the 40s, early 50s, we were taught that, in the Latin phrase, extra ecclesiam nulla salus. Outside the church, extra ecclesiam nulla salus. You had to be a Christian to be saved. No, let me specify. You had to be a Roman Catholic Christian to be saved. I believe that. I mean, that's how I was brought up. And so at an early age, out of 8th grade, when I finished up at St. Joseph's Elementary School in Summit, Illinois, those of you from Chicago, kind of right close where Archer and Harlem intersect, I went into what was called a minor seminary. I decided I wanted to be a priest. I wanted to be a missionary priest because I love people in other religions, and therefore I felt like I had to convert them so that they would have a chance to be saved. And that's what motivated me. So that's how I started out in 1952 when I started my first year of high school at a seminary in East Troy, Wisconsin. That's where it was located, on Lake Beulah. But as I studied these other religions, as I tried to, you have to know something about the people you're going to try to convert. So I started to read up and study up about Hinduism and Buddhism and Islam. I felt I knew enough about Judaism since we have the Old Testament, as Christians put it. But anyway, the more I studied them, the more I was surprisingly impressed by them. And so I said, wait a minute, it's not that there's all error and sin in these other religions. We used to pray in the seminary, we used to pray every day, may the darkness of sin and the night of heathenism vanish before the light of the Word and the Spirit of grace, the Word being Jesus Christ. But when I studied these other religions, it wasn't all darkness, it wasn't all sin. So I was confused. And then I had the good fortune, one of the biggest blessings of my life, was I was sent from the last 4 years of my seminary training, I was sent to Rome to study at the Gregorian University in Rome, founded at the time of the Reformation by St. Ignatius and the Jesuits. Anyway, I arrived in Rome in September of 1962, 2 weeks after late September, 2 weeks after I arrived, the Second Vatican Council started on October 11th, 1962. For those, that was when the Catholic Church finally took the admonition of Martin Luther seriously and tried to reform itself. Finally. Anyway, but among the Reformation, among the renewal of the Catholic Church at that time was something that I never dreamed would happen. Namely, the Catholic, at that council, the bishops, 2,000 and some bishops, decided to write a document called Nostra Aetate, in our age, in which it said that God was present in other religions, that there is good and truth and value in other religions. I never dreamed my church could say something like that and open itself up. The Catholic Church is not known for its ability to change. So anyway, and then besides, it said, and Christians are called upon to dialogue with people of other religions. It became a duty. Well, not quite, but it was a challenge to dialogue with people of other religions. And that's when I said, wow, there is truth. Other religions are good. But as it states up there, then I came to see much truth and value in other religions. But I thought mine was the best. And that's what the Second Vatican Council taught. That all of the truth and goodness in other religions is there as the Latin expression is preparatio evangelica, a preparation for the gospel. In other words, the God is present in other religions in order to prepare them to become Christians. But for me, that was the progress, that was movement. But the more I came to be friends, when I started actually to meet people of other religions, I said, wait a minute, I cannot say that my religion is the fulfillment and meant to complete all other religions, to include inclusiveness. And one of the richest ways, as I have it, one of the richest ways in which I made friends with persons of other religions began right here in Madison, Wisconsin. Or at least that was one of my greatest experiences when I was asked to be on the board of directors of the Interreligious Peace Council, which had its headquarters, its foundation and headquarters here in Madison. And this is a picture of the Interreligious Peace Council when it met at Union Theological Seminary in 2005. The purpose of this council, very briefly, was to assemble prominent figures from all the different religions, and then, by invitation only, to go to areas in the world in which there was conflict especially fomented by religion, to provide an interreligious contribution to peacemaking, non-violent. And we met, we started out meeting in Chiapas, Mexico, we met in Northern Ireland, we met in Israel, we met in South Korea on the border with North Korea. So it was a wonderful experience of me making friends. And here on this picture, I don't know if any of you might recognize some people from Madison. I don't know, is Joe Elder here today? I don't know. Joe and Joanne Elder, if they're not here, they're probably watching on closed circuit. But let's see if I can get this. Okay, there's Joe. That's Joe Elder. You recognize him? That's Daniel Gomez Ibanez, used to work for Madison Gas and Electric. How about this guy? That is Geshe Sopa from the Tibetan community at Deer Park. And is there anyone else? From oh, you know who that is? Reverend Peter Brinkman, Lutheran minister, no longer with us. But Peter was one of the founders of the Peace Council. And of course, members of the Peace Council, we were there with the Dalai Lama. This is Thomas Keating. Some of the Catholics might know of Thomas Keating. Joan Chittister. So anyway, this was where I realized that this attitude of oops, I'm going back here. Where I realized that no religion can claim to be the best, or that no religion can claim to hold all of God's truth. And that every religion has something special, not every single religion, there's a lot of weird religions out there, we can talk about that, but that multiple religions have things to contribute. And every religion needs to learn from the other. So let me just briefly try to talk about, well, then why is interreligious dialogue important or necessary? And I think I'd like to say for two general reasons. One more personal or individual, and the other more, dare I say, geopolitical reasons why the religions of the world need to talk with each other. On the personal reasons, to deepen the peace, the meaningfulness, the stability that religious experience is meant to provide. That's what we hope to find in the practice of our religions. As I said, to get in touch with that bigger reality, that bigger picture, and get in harmony and find out that that's the way to live life. Well, what all the religion, in other words, to deepen our knowledge and experience of the holy mystery we call God. But this, now I'm using the word God. That's the word that the Abrahamic religions use, stemming from Judaism, then Christianity and Islam. They're so-called theistic religions. And they use the word God or Allah, or Jews prefer not to even pronounce the name. But there is this reality, but it is recognized that this reality, ultimate reality, the great mystery, is greater than any human can ever comprehend. That is a common teaching for, I would dare to say, for all the religions of the world. They recognize that the Tao, or the Brahman, or Nirvana is beyond our human comprehension. It's as real as it is incomprehensible. And so therefore, I like to use this analogy. If we understand ultimate reality, I'll use the word God, as kind of the universe that surrounds us and embraces us, but that is beyond us. And this is a comparison, so see if it works for you. The religions of the world are telescopes by which people, they're not the only telescopes, please don't get me wrong, but the religions are telescopes that can peer into the universe beyond our ability to see with our regular eyesight, and to see something, to see something of this greater mystery. But when it's a telescope enables you to see something, but by enabling you to see something, it's just this something and not everything else. So you're seeing something, but you realize you're not seeing everything. And so what to do? How to deepen our understanding, how to do, in a sense, using this analogy, how to increase our vision. Well, you borrow the telescope of another religion and try to look through that telescope. And you might see things you never saw with your Christian telescope or with your Jewish telescope when you look through a Buddhist telescope. That has been my experience. What I have learned from Buddhism, it doesn't contradict, but it deepens, and perhaps in some sense goes beyond what I have learned about ultimate reality through Jesus of Nazareth. So that's the importance of deepening our own experience of our getting in touch with the mystery that we have come to touch somewhat through our own religion when we look through the telescope of another religion. And that's why this is one of my favorite t-shirts. Somebody gave that to me. Can you read it? It's kind of small. God is too big to fit into one religion. I think that says it beautifully. And it has the symbols of various religions there. God, ultimate mystery, is just too big to fit into any one religion. The universe is too vast to be seen through any one telescope. So, continuing on this conversation of why is interreligious dialogue important, even necessary, I'd like to offer some geopolitical reasons, if I may put it that. If the personal reasons are to deepen the peace within your own heart by dialoguing with other religions, learning from them. Geopolitically, it can promote the peace in the world. And here I'd like to just give you a quotation from a friend of mine who died just maybe 5 or 6 months ago, a very famous Swiss Catholic theologian, Hans Küng is his name. Hans Küng said, "There will be no peace among nations without peace among religions." I think there's something profound. We can talk about that in this discussion. No peace among nations without peace among religions, and there will be no peace among religions without dialogue among those religions. So what is contained in that? Part of it means just that the religions can provide the motivation and the guidance for people who are committed to making peace. I mean, a religious, as Thich Nhat Hanh, the Zen Buddhist Vietnamese teacher puts it, religion enables you to have peace in your peace, enables you to be peace, to experience peace, and that enables you to make peace. So that's in general, religious, to call upon the resources of the religion, of the religions of the world. But I think there's an even more important reason why religions have to get together to work for peace in the world. And that's because the religions have been such a cause of conflict and violence. And anybody who denies that is not reading the paper. So here, if the religions of the world are part of the reason why there is so much tension and violence in the world, and here I'm talking about the way, and you find examples of this in every religion, even in Buddhism, which is supposed to be the peace religion, when you look at the situation in Sri Lanka right now, or even worse in Myanmar, how Buddhism is calling for violence against Muslims. And in Sri Lanka, how the Buddhist monks are calling for opposition to Hindu Sri Lankans. But every religion has been used as to foster, to deepen violence. And when you have a fighter, a soldier, who is convinced that God is with him, as the Germans had it on their belts in World War I, God is with us, I guarantee you that soldier is going to be braver. But when it comes to that soldier defending the one true religion, it's also going to be more brutal. And we see that. We see it in Islam today, but we also see it in Christianity. I'll get to that in a moment. So if religions are part of the problem, they have to be part of the solution. That we have to call upon religions to work together to recognize how they have been, you could say, misused, appropriated by politicians or appropriated by demagogues, as is so often the case. So we need greater collaboration, cooperation among the religions of the world. So how about, briefly before we engage in a little bit of interreligious dialogue ourselves, let me just say a few things about how to go about an interreligious conversation. And these are just some suggestions, some maybe some guidelines. First of all, can you read that? That's kind of small, but it's check all claims of religious supremacy at the door. What do I mean by that? I mean, and I'm talking to myself as a Christian, as a follower of a religion that has claimed to be the one superior religion over all others, and as a church that is claimed to be the one true church. Thank God, footnote, in the Second Vatican Council, that is no longer the teaching of the Catholic Church. They corrected it without ever saying they made a mistake. But that's how the Catholic Church works. When they make big change, they never fix it. This is probably inappropriate, but one religious wag said, when the Catholic Church finally comes out to admit the use of artificial contraception, to say that birth control is okay, right now the opening line of that papal edict will be, as the church has always taught. Anyway, but check off, and here as they note, Christian supremacy is especially dangerous. In the USA, and there have been a number of recent books written on this, the claims of Christianity being the one true religion, Christian supremacy, has been shown to be the fertile soil in which white supremacy has thrived. Manifest Destiny, remember in your history course? Manifest destiny of the white Europeans to take over the land from the Native Americans because we had the superior culture, because we had the superior religion. So there are links between Christian supremacy and white supremacy, and not just scholars, but church leaders are beginning to face that. So check all claims of my religion being better than yours at the door, which doesn't mean that I think I have something to say to you. I, a Christian, have something to say to you, a Muslim, which I think might be helpful for you, as I believe that you will have something perhaps important for me to to learn from. But secondly, and this is an expression that's used by a number of religious scholars, religious dialogue requires to pass over to this other religious tradition. And by that, it means that it's not just a matter of the head, of reading. Reading is very important, of studying, very important. But to understand another religion, you have to in some way pass over with your, not just your mind, but your heart. Not just with your thinking, but with your feeling. Not just with your reason, but with your imagination. And to try to enter into that other world. It's not easy, but it is possible. To see the world the way a Buddhist sees the world. To see the world the way a Hindu or a Muslim would. And then to really be open and be patient when with what seems to be contradictions with your own belief. You may see things that, whoa, I mean, give you an example. When I started to study Buddhism and practice Buddhism, first thing is Buddhists don't believe in God. Well, that's kind of a conversation stopper, isn't it? They don't believe in God. Whoa, but before you say, whoa, end of conversation, why don't they believe in God? What is the God they don't believe in? And just patience, look deeply, talk more, listen more, open your heart and your imagination more. Because where there are differences, there are also the greatest possibilities to learn something new. So then, how to engage with another tradition? And I'm talking to all of us, we're not as mobile as we were at one time, but what can we do just maybe to expand and deepen the peace within our own heart? Well, it's a question of primarily, as much as is possible, make friends with people of other religious paths. Make friends with people who see the world, maybe understand God, understand the world, understand afterlife differently than you do. First, be friends. Get to share a meal, have a beer with them. Not with Muslims, but have a cup of tea with them. And that's why I said not with Muslims. Alcohol is forbidden, not for any other reason. So, but when you become friends, and that's what I found in the Interreligious Peace Council. When I made friends with Mahakosananda, when I made friends with Geshe Sopa, with Swami Nivesh, the Hindu and Buddhist leaders, in no way could I tell them what my theology, my Christian theology told me that they have to be fulfilled in Christianity in order to be truly happy. They were happy. They were committed. They didn't need Jesus to be saved. Boom, that sounds like some Christians even. But they needed Jesus maybe to learn things that they didn't learn. But we can talk more about that. So through personal friendships, but then through study, books, oh my God, the videos and talks that are available on the web today, and possibly through sharing in rituals and in practices. And that the religion that I have been most engaged in, are working together. That's what we did at the Peace Council. We worked together to try to create peace. But as I said, and I'll conclude with this, my own experience of the importance and the necessity of interreligious dialogue is, as I said before, when I encountered Buddhism, when I started to practice Zen back in the 80s, when I was teaching at Xavier University in Cincinnati. And that deepened, and I made friends, and I went to Japan and spent some time in Buddhist monasteries in Japan. And I realized that this Gautama, this Buddha, was onto something. In no way did I deny that Jesus of Nazareth was also onto something, or Moses was onto something, or Lao Tzu, or Muhammad in the Quran. They were all answers, but what Buddhists found, it just so impacted me. And then, as I married a woman who was brought up Catholic as I was, but found that she was called to, and found much greater meaning in practicing Tibetan Buddhism. And so I was married to a Buddhist. You better die of love. Learn how to die of love. So, but all of these to the point where I just, this was back in around 2006, where I just said, because I was understanding so much of my Christianity through a Buddhist lens, I said, what the hell am I? Am I a Christian or am I a Buddhist? And that's then I did what professors do when they have a problem and when they need tenure. They write a book. They write a book and just figure it out. And that's what I did with this book that without Buddha, I don't think I could be a Christian. It has become so. Now I'm talking about myself. I'm not saying that other Christians have to follow the same path. Not at all. But Buddhism has enabled me to understand more deeply, more clearly, what my Christian tradition is, and it has truly enriched my life. So I would just like to leave it there as by way of introduction. I went 32 minutes according to my timer, so I'm 2 minutes over. But I think right now you have the next step in our program.
I would like to invite our panel, for your positions, and we're looking forward to hear your personal stories on how you get in touch with ultimate reality. We'll start with one, and I'll suggest you use this link, or maybe I'll just bring it to you. Yeah. I'll get this.
Okay. Interfaith dialogue is straightforward and necessary to one aspect of my faith, but more challenging to another. Straightforward is the mystery of existence, that there is something rather than nothing. Some 15 billion years ago, the Big Bang gave birth to the universe. For much of the time, it consisted of inert stardust. Somewhere down the line of evolution, the stardust transformed itself into Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. Remarkable as this phenomenon is, it has not stopped me in my track. What has stopped me in wonder is that utter inconsequential existence of me, of this man you are looking at now, who happens to like waffle with maple syrup. I find my experience incomprehensible and miraculous. But if I exist, if I'm worthwhile to bring into being, then everything from the fruit fly to the dinosaur speak to me of the presence of God. Now to the second reason for my faith, which is the core of Christianity. It has a distinctive trait that is not paralleled in other religions, hence the difficulty of transference. I've been drawn to Christianity since childhood, and the attraction has increased over time, culminating in extreme old age. At this stage in my life, hardly a day passes without my finding a new source of discomfort or pain. As a result, I've become not only more sensitive to the ubiquity of suffering in the world, but also to something else, which is the world's indifference. Suppose I died in agony in the middle of the night. My neighbors would comment on it sympathetically while having breakfast at Henry Street Cafe, but then quickly add, "Oh, blueberry muffins, just what I like." I need a God who himself, in his earthly existence, knew to the full pain, humiliation, and above all, abandonment.
Is this now? Yes. Going to stand up. I found that the notion of speaking today on the issues that have just been spoken about so well by the speaker himself and then Xavier here left me unsure of how to address the issues that I have found in my life. And what I would say is that it has been a privilege for me to be able to meet people of very differing religions. And strangely, when I first actually spent any time in my life thinking about the relationship of my religion to other religions, I also made a discovery within my own religion. So when my mother died, I was taken by my father with my cousin to Israel because he was about to go on to India and he wanted us to be able to go from Britain to Israel to see where the origins of the Jewish religion that I belonged to came from. And while I was in England before, I had been very much involved with Christian religion, because although we kept the Jewish religion at home, in school in England, even though they were the state schools, you began the day with prayers and you had Christian prayers. And even though we did not necessarily attend Christian prayers, we knew them all very clearly. And when I went to Israel, I discovered something amazing to me. And that was, while I was there, went to the tomb of David, which is outside the main part of Jerusalem. And Jews could not go to the main part of Jerusalem at the time in 1952, because the main part of Jerusalem was held by the Jordanians. And the tomb of David became just one area where one could go to. And there at the tomb of David, I found a group of people gathered together in the dark, lit by candles, who came from many different countries and looked very different from me, but who also belonged to Jewish religion. And that was the first time I had had any inkling that there was a way that I was perceiving my religion through my country that I came from, that I was rooted in a British attitude towards Judaism, and that this was very different from what was round about me. And that all the people that I saw who were there in the tomb of David were saying the same prayer that I had texts known. But from there, I also understood that they were very different from me within my religion. And then beyond that, I had got my background from Christianity, from being in British schools and seeing the Church of England and the religion that was being spoken about there. So I spent a great deal of time thinking about, where do I belong? What is it that I belong to? What is it that is mine in relation to all the cacophony, as it were, of sounds coming to me on this? And I just want to thank the speaker enormously for speaking about the significance of learning that there are so many religious positions that one can have in the world. And beyond the days that I have had in my own experience, I've also had students over the years in the university who were Native American and who brought to me a new understanding of the world as they saw it. And then I have been to other areas and had conversations with other people from other areas who belonged to both the Buddhist and the Muslim religion. So sometimes the issue becomes for me, what is it that all of us can offer that makes us able to find ways to relate to one another through the positive ways that we can help one another in the world? Because we are all humans and we are only one species within the whole of the Lord's world. And we kid ourselves that we can do whatever we want in the world. And it really is no concern whatsoever of what happens to the other animals and the other plants and all the other institutions of ideas within the world. I feel extraordinarily sad, I guess, to be ending my life now. I'm now 92. At a time when I look at the world and I think the humans here are so concerned with themselves and feel that they have the right to do whatever they want to do. We have the right to do whatever we want to do because we are humans, and have so little concern for a universe that is unbelievable and unreachable and ununderstandable for us. We are not the be-all and the end-all of the world. And that's the thing that concerns me so much at the moment. And I thank you for bringing to us the views that you had and the understandings that you had. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Paul. I must say, I want to take a page out of your book, your wonderful book, and say nothing. Because you made a good case for saying nothing. Paul would know what I'm talking about. But however, I was asked to be specific. I was specifically asked to answer the question. How I get in touch with God, ultimate reality. So, Paul, here's my attempt. It's short, it's not silent. I have no idea if I'm getting in touch with God, ultimate reality, or what it might mean to be in touch with Him, her, they, it. I find God a metaphorical mess, antithetical to mitigating harm. Often, God is a trope used for tribal comfort, gain, and coercion. I attend to others' beliefs in God when their views help others. For example, original blessings used to bridge differences, or when they harm others. For example, original sin used to foster fear. I do not ponder ultimate reality, whatever that might mean. I read, study, and reflect on findings in cosmology, biology, religion, economics, history, and psychology, and imagine what's yet to be discovered. I will remain ignorant of much. I play at poetry and prose in amazement at the vastness of the cosmos, inside and outside each of us. And I meditate, mostly while walking, painting pastels, doing Tai Chi, and writing to my parents. I try to stay in touch, whatever that means. I feel, care, help, doubt, and think. Therefore, I am.
Thank you, Boris. One of the pleasures of being part of the Monday Interfaith Conversation Group here at Capitol Lakes is becoming friends with some of these folks up here. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, and almost every Sunday morning as a child growing up, I attended Hope Congregational Church. I must have had some very amazing Sunday school teachers because the stories themselves became familiar. But the thing that the teachers that I heard as a child, a very young child at a very young age, was that these people, these heroes, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, David, I say David because he was a favorite, but anyway, these people seem to be considering themselves friends with God. Now, as a child who evidently asked impertinent questions that were not welcome in adult circles, and I knew that I had a lot of commentaries as a child that I didn't dare speak out loud. But I thought, well, now here is this God I could pray to, I could talk to, I could be truthful to, I could say how I felt. And that's how prayer was sort of formed in me and became a habit as a child. It carried me into adolescence. And as I learned more about the last few chapters in the Bible about Jesus and how confrontive he was and impolite he was at times, I thought, okay, maybe I can identify with him too. But I have to say that I have to admit that as I became adult and busy and somewhat very, very busy in lots of ways besides family and community, I have to admit I was treating God. I recognize this mystery that we call God that we can't understand. I was treating it as a power pack that I could call on when I realized I was in over my head. And that was very humbling in midlife when a series of devastating failures and disappointments and crises happened to my husband and me. I guess the Buddhists say, when you're ready, the teacher will come. And for me, the teacher was that man in the white robe in the middle of that picture. Thomas Keating was a Catholic, not even sure which branch of the Trappist monastery. But his writings on centering prayer, on how to still the silence of my very busy mind and to relax some of the anxiety in my body with this 20-minute practice, which wasn't fun and didn't produce immediate results. But it became a practice that for many, many years, my husband and I look back and it salvaged us. It's why we're here today. And I am very thankful for that habit that got started in childhood, a very personal. And one conversation I had with somebody, so you believe in a personal God? And I can say, all I can say is this being human is a very personal experience. So.
Conscious of the time, I will just say that there are some real parallels, Norma. I had the audacity as a child to say, I was raised as a Christian. Don't people get it? Jesus was a Jew. Let's start right there. And like Norma, at a time of crisis, I also turned to a form of centering prayer. Buddha asked, how do I know when I'm in touch? I listen. There's a synchronicity that happens. I'll hear something that Paul has said that I didn't expect to hear. I'll read something. Then somebody out there is going to say something else to me. And all of a sudden I'm going, oh, I need to listen to this because information is coming to me through my reading or in a variety of ways. And it's how God gets my attention. And in terms of the interfaith dialogue, the way I explain God is my diamond. I have some background in geology. The rock comes out, it's not pretty at all. It isn't until the jeweler cuts it that the colors come through. And anytime you take a diamond and you move it, there are multiple colors. That's what interfaith dialogue is all about. Everybody, every faith has some part of the color to share with us. They're all beautiful and they all contribute.
Well, I really don't know what to add by way of trying to bring out what we've learned or what was going on in this particular exchange, this interreligious dialogue that we had right here. But it was just, again, it is just striking how what is particular to each of the speakers that we heard now, what was meaningful in its particularity for them, as meaningful as it is for them and their particular existence, it also has a kind of, if I dare say, a universal, a general, a broader meaning, which again indicates for me that when we do come into touch with, when we are touched by that which we call mystery or God, we are touched by something that cannot be limited to what we are experiencing this moment. We sense that. We sense this is something that is bigger than what I'm experiencing now, and therefore that what might be significant to others. And I think that's what we heard. But one particular thing, and I so much appreciate your mentioning Tom Keating, Father Thomas Keating, who was part of the Interreligious Peace Council. Joe Elder just joined us now, Joe being one of the founders, right here, sitting up of the Interreligious Peace Council, that you knew Tom just as well, and knew the depth of his own religious experience, the depth of his own mystical experience, but also the breadth of his humanity. But what he so stressed, and what both of you touched on, and it resonated also with others, more as we touched on it by talking about having to be quiet and keep silence, that in order to experience what we are calling God or mystery or Tao or Brahman, we have to shut up. We have to stop our usual way of thinking. We have to allow ourselves silence. In the book, I talk about, and this is Christian or Catholic terminology, the Sacrament of Silence. That silence, stopping, quieting our usual thinking, discursive way of approaching the world, and just letting all thoughts go and sinking into that silence, something can happen. And I don't mean you're struck by both lightning and knocked off your order, but I mean you begin to be aware that there is indeed a mystery that is part of our humanity, that is going on in all of the human activities that we are part of, in loving and trusting and struggling. But that mystery can be sensed when we let go of our thinking and just be. What was and just be? What is there's the expression letting go in order to let God. There's a trust in that silence, and I think that's one of the powerful messages of centering prayer, and why it has spoken to so many people. Of course, I told Tom, I say we were all such friends. Excuse me for referring to Father Thomas Keating as Tom, but and he said, really centering prayer, when we were talking about my experience with centering prayer, he said, this Christian form of Zen meditation. It's what is going on in this Christian form, but it's actually what Zen are doing when they are just sitting and letting all thoughts go and just being aware of your breath. So anyway, I guess we're over time because of that, but I just want to thank you all for your testimonies, and I would love to talk more with you about your understanding of Christianity. It was beautiful what you said about a God who suffers. You know, I can't have the text. But anyway, it just was a wonderful opportunity to hear from all of you. And look, I don't know where we're at with time and such. I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you all for coming today, this afternoon. It was a wonderful experience for me. Not only just what Paul said, but what our neighbors, our friends told us and shared their intimate experiences. And I want to close with an invitation for you. If you want to process this more, every Monday at 10 a.m. in a chapel, we have this group. Particularly this coming Monday, we'll talk about what we learned from Paul and from this experience. So thank you all for coming. A wonderful evening, and thank you for joining us today.
May I just add something? I had, before coming over, I had a couple of extra copies of this book. I don't need to be perfect, yes, but they're here, and I got them for author's discount. If anybody might be interested in, they're here. But please, I just want to alert you to that. But good, thank you again for